Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. We just want to take a quick second to thank our sponsors. For those of you who don't remember, Bella Freights and Loft at Pex Hall are our two sponsors this season. And I just want to take a minute to make sure you understand what opportunities you have with these companies. The Loft at Pex Hall, it is a beautiful third floor, revamped, redone venue for anything you need. If you need to have a wedding, you have some sort of work party coming up, maybe you want to get some pictures done, maybe you have a wedding and you want to get some engagement pictures taken, maybe you want to get some wedding photos taken outside of the venue for the wedding, maybe you want to get married at this place. The Loft at Pex Hall is a beautiful place. They have a freight elevator to take you to the third floor. You don't even have to walk up the stairs. Don't even walk up the stairs. It's that easy. Take that freight elevator. They have catering taken care of for you. All you have to do is show up and enjoy the views of that third floor overlooking beautiful downtown Circleville, Ohio. Pumpkins everywhere. Check them out on Facebook or online today.
Have you ever thought to yourself, boy, I wonder how those huge loads get from one end of the country to the other, or how these houses are on the street getting carried from one spot to another, or whatever it may be. If those big, huge loads that you see on the road, check out Bella Freight. If you have something like that just needs moved, it could be anything from a house to a car, just really whatever. Just check out Bella Freight. You can find them on Facebook, find them online. Just search Bella Freight, Bella Freight. Check them out. You won't regret it, because they're going to be respectful and they are just a wonderful company. So check out Bella Freight today and book your next wide load travel or heavy travel as soon as possible. And with that, Bucks win. Let's get to the show.
Could be up to the offensive line. No, Prince's going to throw for it. Got to get it off. They go for the ball game. Touchdown! Touchdown! Michael Jenkins! Holy Buckeye! Tebow straight ahead into the end zone, and the Gators have put this one on ice.
Hello, 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 and welcome to the Tim and Shipe Show. This is a college football podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Tim Jones is a Gator fan. I am an Ohio State fan. We have so much to talk about tonight. We're a part of the Press Play Podcast Network. I'm not sure if I said that already, but if I did, it's okay, because they are just that good. So check out Press Play Podcast Network and all the shows that they have to offer. Tim Jones, Kyle Trask had a very difficult time with Oklahoma, and he had a rough night with the Heisman. What's going through his mind? What's going through Gator Nation right now?
Well, those two things are obviously completely unrelated. The votes were in before that game.
Obviously, yeah.
So it just like a little
just a little dig
salt in
there.
the wounds, a little salt in the wound, but it's all right. It's warranted. Unfortunately, you're having a better week than I am.
I am.
I mean, we talked about this last week. I expected this from Florida against Oklahoma. When your top four receivers are out, your secondary, we're down three pretty big players. Like it was not a good night.
Yeah. I texted you right before, because you sent me the whole list of everyone who was out, and I was like, boy, this hardly even feels like a bowl game anymore. Just all the people that are out, it seemed like just more like Florida was looking at it more of a scrimmage, and unfortunately that's kind of how it played out. Well,
except for the one idiot player for Florida who tried to make a comment about how the fourth best team in the SEC is still better than anybody else in the Big 12. That was a really idiotic comment to make. I mean, granted, I think he made that comment before he realized how down this team was going to be. Yeah. But it's stupid. Like, you don't say things like that. Like, between he and Dabo, I think people learned this bowl season. Just don't talk. So yeah, I mean, it's just, and I know you didn't love Mullen's comments after the game, but I didn't really, honestly, I didn't see a problem. I wouldn't have had a problem with any coach saying the things that he said, because it was basically saying this is not the 2020 team that we had, and it's not. Like, that's not the team that played this season. All of their best offensive players were down, except for Trask, who was trying to throw these players who they had very little experience or no experience, and I think that showed more than anything. There was no separation. You called it last week. You said you felt like maybe he was going to force some throws. We had 3 quick picks in the first quarter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to his credit, I guess he didn't throw any after that, but it was kind of too little too late at that point. And the first interception was he forced that 100%. The second one, he threw it right in the receiver's hands. He tipped it up to the defender. Just a really bad play. So, and then the third one was I think it was forced into the end zone, if I'm not mistaken. So it was not a good look for Trask. He did not have a great night. And then he's going pro, so it's not a great way to win a career. But like I said, overall, this is kind of what I expected. The most exciting thing for me was watching our third string quarterback, true freshman Richardson. I think he is going to be an absolute star.
Yeah.
Emory Jones is the next man up. He's going to get his chance.
Is he for real? Emory Jones, he's going to be the guy. I haven't been impressed with him. He runs the ball okay, but
he's been there. So right now it's his job to lose, but there's no guarantees he'll have it. I think Richardson is going to be that good. Yeah. And he's still a little more dual threat, but he's not as good on his feet as Emory Jones is. But I think he has a better arm than Emory Jones. He's more like Trask with his passing, but a little stronger arm. So I think if Richardson learns a playbook and he gets ready to have the opportunity, then he may end up winning that job next year. He is that good.
Yeah. So just to clarify on a little bit of Dan Mullen. So I haven't been impressed with Dan Mullen's comments to the media most of the year. I just think that why make comments at all like that? Why not just say, yeah, Oklahoma outplayed us today. They had a better game plan, things like that. Why do you need the excuses? That's kind of what bothered me is, why dig into the excuses and pull them out for the media? Why put yourself in that position to be scrutinized? Just do the coach speak, move on, and end the season. Why did he need to say what he said?
Well, and keep in mind, this is what the clickbait is in between conversations. So it's not like he's throwing out 4 specific things of excuses. It was more during the people were asking questions. He's giving answers. He could have just been stereotypical, cliche, they outplayed us tonight. We were okay. But no, he was just he was frustrated. He's just this isn't our team. This isn't who we are. And the things he was saying, I didn't have a problem with them. I really didn't. If you read the actual transcript of the interaction, the conversation, it was just him explaining the situation of we're down. We didn't have to play this game. And it's true. They were down more players than Ohio State was at any point in the season that they played a game. They had they had more players out than Ohio State ever did at any point in the season. So,
well, to be fair, Ohio State only canceled one of those. One game was
regardless
of Ohio State.
Regardless, though, they had more players out than a lot of the teams in the Big Ten did cancel games. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
They had all the reason in the world where they could have said, we're not going to play this game, but obviously they wanted to. It's a bowl game. It's way bigger than a normal average season game. And I'm not trying to downplay that. I understand why they played the game, but I think his point of just saying we could have canceled this game too. Technically they had well under the minimum players necessary to play a game, and they knew it wasn't going to be competitive. And that's where I think the frustration comes in, where this year has just been awful. And I don't think he's trying to say it's anybody's fault. He's just saying it's very frustrating where we are at this point. And granted, a lot of these players are going pro, but COVID was also a factor in this game as well.
Yeah. So looking forward to next year. Now I know that, the recruits are in, the team that you're going to have next year, but it's going to look a heck of a lot different than the team you have this year. Expectations after the season, what are you looking for in the 2021 team?
So we still have some recruits. We're going for the final signing days until February, I believe, right? The early February, I think is the final signing day. So we have some time. There's not a whole lot out there still, but there are some we're still hoping to be able to get. But the biggest things for me are looking, keep in mind, we as a Florida Gators, they've lost 6 receivers to the NFL potentially in the last 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
That hurts. If the 3 players going pro, the top 3 receivers going pro are drafted, and I think they will be, for sure, one in the first round in Pitts. Mm-hmm. And then Tony and Grimes, I believe, also will be drafted
3rd, 4th round. Yeah.
Well, Tony might be a 2nd to 3rd. I think Grimes is more 4th, 5th.
Yeah.
But they'll be drafted. That's the point. Is we're gonna have 6 receivers in the NFL from Florida in the last 2 seasons. That's hard to replace. It's hard to overcome that. But having said that, we have some young players coming up who are very talented. I'm very excited to see what they can do. But the biggest things that I think it's clear that Florida has to work on this offseason is their defense. And so what they have done, they did fire their cornerbacks coach, their safeties coach, and they are in communication. What I'm hearing from my, Gator insiders is that they're working at bringing back what would be considered more of like a co-defensive coordinator with Todd Grantham. And he was at Florida, and then he was at South Carolina until now with Muschamp until he got fired. And they're in conversations to bring him back, and he would coach the cornerbacks and the safeties. And that would be a huge pickup for the Gators. This is a guy who had Florida at their height of their DBU point, which they still are DBU, but they've just haven't been. They still are DBU. They've had a down year this year. They absolutely are.
Oh my gosh, Tim.
Who is Ohio State?
Ohio State's DBU.
Don't even start. Don't even start. No, nobody believes that. Anyway, the point is,
this
bring
decade,
back the height of DBU years.
Since 2007, Ohio State has been DBU. Since 2007, Ohio State has been DBU.
We've had this conversation year in, year out. No.
Oh,
so anyway, they'll bring them back.
Florida, Tim.
Bring Florida back to the height of DBU. They had one down year, and all of a sudden you're like, you don't get it. You don't understand.
If anything,
one down year.
Probably Georgia would be DBU over
what?
Who would not? Yeah, there's
LSU. Is that what you're trying?
Yeah, that's it. LSU.
But no, don't.
LSU would probably be DBU over Florida. Florida's probably
Florida,
third
then
on the
LSU,
list.
then Alabama, then Ohio State. Anyway, so they're bringing him back, and he's going to bring us back to the height of our DBU, as we are, and I'm really excited for that. That will make a huge impact. And then, just reloading on the offense is going to be a unique challenge. And the biggest question for me on offense is going to be, can we keep our offensive coordinator? Because my understanding is he actually interviewed for the Boise State job today for the head coach. And keep in mind, he's a first-year offensive coordinator, but he deserves it. He and Mullen call the plays together. He's really good. If we keep him there, I think that's going to be exciting offense for years to come.
Yeah, FYI, Ohio State did just pick up another 5-star defensive back for the 2022 season. So, I mean, it's just
2022.
Yeah, well, that's the next signing class.
That can change. That can change tomorrow.
That's the next signing class we picked up. I mean, we have, I think, 4 or 5 stars right now in the 2022 class. But yeah, a lot can change. But defensive backs know where DBU is these days. Yeah, anyway, Florida. Yeah, because they're all just fucking to Florida.
I heard rumors that if Jacksonville Jaguars do not get Urban Meyer, which, obviously that's a big rumor right now, Urban Meyer to Jacksonville,
right? Then
the next guy up on their list is Ryan Day. Have you heard those rumors?
Yeah, I have. Of course, Ryan Day at this point of the season says he's not going anywhere. We'll see. It would be a horrible loss to lose him. Like, I don't know who would be next up, and I think he's going to get a huge contract bump after this year, but I don't see Ryan Day going in. Why would you want to leave Ohio State, and go to the pros? He said, he's made statements, about coaching in the pros because he's been there before. And he said statements like the league is set up for you to go 8-8, and if you go 8-8 3 years in a row, you're fired. It's set up for failure. If you're at a school like Ohio State, with the recruiting they have, the strength training, the resources they have, you're set up for success. So he said things like that before. I think he's happy at Ohio State, but, every job has its challenges. So I hope he stays, but I wouldn't, obviously I wouldn't blame him if he left.
Well, he's been there for what, 3 years?
This is only his second. Yeah.
Second year. Yeah. So, I mean, it's early in his time. It's easy to say he's happy there now when he's been there for 2 years. But,
right.
It's one
but
of those.
That's why, in 10 years, he very well could leave. He's only been here 2 years. So I'd be shocked if he left. But, does he even like it here? Does he like Ohio? Does he, are his kids happy in school? There's a lot of different factors that go into why a coach was where he is.
Sure. I can see why he wanted to move to Florida.
No. And whatever. All right. So I have, any final thoughts, Tim? I don't want to cut your time short.
No, you're good. You're good.
Florida, because I have a lot to talk about the Ohio State game. I kind of almost want to break down the whole thing, but we will talk more about that after the break.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. We read one book a month and then we talk about it. Books like Stephen King's The Shining or Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. If you're on the hunt for book recommendations and enjoy sparkling conversation, come read along with us and then listen in.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico from Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Be sure to give us a listen for all your Cleveland Cavaliers recaps, analysis, breakdowns, draft talk, free agency. The list goes on and on. Give us a listen, Cavs on the Break NBA podcast.
Hey everyone, it's Cameron Justice, co-host of the Orange is Orange or Browns podcast. Make sure you check us out for everything Browns. We got you covered before the game, after the game. Here are our takes, here are our feedback, here are our criticisms, and our praises. If you like the Browns, you're going to love this podcast.
I'm Dennis Maniloff, co-host along with the roadman Kenny Rhoda of the Next Man Up podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. Roadman and I do a deep dive into Browns, Indians, Cavs, Ohio State, and anything else that's on the sports fan's mind.
Hey, it's JD from the Hyman Podcast. Using a narrative storytelling approach, the Hyman Podcast was created to start conversations that need to be human. Week by week, I'll break down walls and barriers and make people wildly uncomfortable, all the while giving a voice to the voiceless and the marginalized. Consider this your personal invitation to be part of that conversation.
So I've watched the game twice and I've listened to it once. If you're an Ohio State fan, I highly recommend you find the Ohio State-Clemson game that ran on the ACC network because it was commentated by Clemson Radio. So Clemson Radio did the ACC Ohio State, and man, it was a lot of fun to listen to, especially in the first half when Ohio State went down 14-7, and the commentators were saying, yeah, Ohio State got lucky going at that last touchdown, but I just see Clemson running away with it after this. And just knowing what was going to happen, it just felt so good. So I highly recommend checking out the ACC Network's showing of the game. So let's talk about the game, Tim. A lot happened. What was going through your mind when Clemson just got the ball, started the game, and just drove it down the field, went up 7-0 super fast? What went through your mind there? What were you thinking?
Honestly, ironically, I was thinking about the kickoff for Ohio State against Florida. 2006, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I guess. Yeah, that's what went through my mind. I was like, well, this is looking good, but it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Honestly, I didn't think about this till after the game. I heard somebody mention it. It was the game was eerily similar to Ohio State, Oregon. Do you remember when Ohio State played Oregon in the national championship and Oregon got the first drive and drove it down the field, scored quick. And then Ohio State took off in the second quarter, and then they went blow for blow third and fourth quarter. And that's like exactly what happened this game. The score was pretty similar. So it just reminded me a lot of the Oregon game. But anyway, so I could just talk all day about this, so I won't. 14-7. I'm nervous. I'm thinking, boy, hopefully Clemson doesn't run away with this. But what won it for Ohio State? Obviously, last week you said 3 things need to happen for Ohio State to win. You said turnovers, time of possession, and what was the third one?
Not giving up the big plays.
Not giving up the big plays. And they did give up some big plays, but they didn't give up as many as Clemson did.
Well, and not really until after the game was kind of already out of hand.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it seemed like they were already up big before they allowed Clemson to make some big plays.
Mm-hmm.
To where they could afford to, I think.
Yeah.
And that's really, they did what they had to do. Like they just offensively, they couldn't be stopped. I think this is a game where Ohio State's offense played out of their minds. Like this is the best game they've played in the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Offensively, in my opinion. They were.
Yeah, I think they played a lot of last year. They were unstoppable. With J.K. Dobbins, same wide receivers basically we have this year. Like our offense was potent last year, all season long.
Until it mattered against Clemson.
They were potent until they got to the red zone. But other than that, they were moving
in general,
well.
though. Overall, I think this is the best game I've ever seen. I've seen them play in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Where they could not be stopped. What I was most impressed with, honestly, was the coaching.
Yeah.
The way that Ryan Day's game plan for this game could not have been better. The
Do you buy into the Venables steal and sign thing?
I do. I buy into
signs.
it. I think the fact that Clemson's offensive coordinator not being at the game hurt. But that wasn't the big issue. The fact they couldn't stop them defensively.
Right.
I do believe in. I am a believer in that, and I think the fact that Ryan Day obviously was on his mind too, because he switched up the rhythm all game long.
Yeah.
To quick, and then he would slow down a little bit, but then he'd go right back to it. And it seemed to mess up Clemson. They could not get it figured out.
Yeah, usually when you think of a game playing with tempo, you think of no huddle, quick, get the reads, get the ball off, you're moving down. Oregon, you think of that kind of offense with Marcus Mariota. That's what you think of tempo. But Ryan Day controlled tempo in a completely different way this game. Where it was fast and go. It was fast when it needed to be fast. It was slow when it needed to be slow. And you could see the frustration from Clemson over at the sideline, like, get us a play in, like, get it in, because they were just out of sorts. And once Skowski went out, not having that middle linebacker to direct his folks, that really, really hurt. They just could not get settled. They were playing on their heels the entire game on defense. And, what a great job by Ryan Day and the coaching staff.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Play of the game for me was late in the we'll go to Skowski, because that happened pretty quick. For early in the second quarter, Ohio State's up 21-14. Skowski drops his head, crowns to Justin Fields' ribs. To me, it looked like broken ribs. He comes in, he's out for a play and throws a touchdown pass. Like, how gutsy of a play was that? Like, first, there's just so much that you could break down there. One, was it targeting? Two, should he have been ejected from the game? And three, what in the world is Ryan Day thinking throwing a pass when your quarterback, the first play back, goodness, what a gutsy call. I mean, it paid off by Olave in the corner, but man, what a gutsy call. So Tim, Skowski, what's your take?
Honestly, I don't know. I understand that, I guess, according to the rule, that is targeting. Targeting for me is becoming the new, was that a catch in the NFL? Whereas the definition of what is targeting seems to apply differently to different situations, where I think that's called one maybe out of 10 opportunities where it's actually called a targeting. And if the quarterback's not laying on the ground in pain, that's never reviewed. In my opinion, there's no way they're going to review that. But the fact that he was hurt, he's a quarterback, we better check on this. And that was targeting. It's a weird play for me. I wouldn't have thought to call it.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on it. When I first watched it, I thought, when I first saw it, I thought, oh, big hit, when I was just in the moment. Yeah. When they showed the review with him, how he came in head up and then last second crowned it. Did you see that? He came up with his face mask up and then last second dropped it. For one, that is dangerous for him. I mean, that looked just like what happened to Ryan Shazier that paralyzed him. That's exactly how that hit went. And so he needs to protect himself and not do that. That's dangerous for Skowski. I hope that he changes up his technique. He did it last year, got thrown out against LSU. So, and then on the second, I don't think there was intent there to be cruel. I don't think he was doing it, at first, when I initially saw it, I was like, man, that's dirty. But then, when he came up to Justin Fields after the game, almost looked like an apology of hey man, sorry, I don't think that it was that he intended to hurt Justin Fields and thinking, I'll sacrifice myself to take Justin Fields out of this game. I don't think it was anything like that. No,
I don't think he'd be the player they would want to do that. He's not the guy they'd be like, that's it, whatever it takes, you can be off the rest of the game. No, that's not the player they would choose to do that. Yeah. They're going to try to be dirty.
Right. Yeah. So I don't think it was dirty, but it looked a lot like Shaun Wade last year. But man, Lawrence dipped down into Shaun Wade. I have to believe that.
Well, that was helmet to helmet though. That was more.
That was helmet to helmet, but was it crown?
That's the difference.
Was it the crown of his head or was it just helmet to helmet? Did it look like intent where he dropped his head like that? I can't remember the Shaun Wade.
Intent's not part of the rule though.
I know, but I'm trying to put myself in outside observer, if I'm on the outside looking in, and trying to be as unbiased as possible. Because when I looked because obviously I don't think that Shaun Wade should have been kicked out of that game. I think that Lawrence dipped into it. There's all kinds of things. And so I'm trying to be unbiased here looking at Skowski. Like, if I don't think that Sean Wade was targeting, should I change? Like, do I think that Skowski was?
Yeah.
And
Well,
so that's where my struggle's coming.
When I think of targeting, I think of a hit to the head or neck area. That's what automatically comes to my mind. I know they talked about that during the game, but it's like, how often is that ever called outside of the head or neck? If my helmet hits you outside of your head or neck, how often is that called? Extremely rare.
Right.
And that's where it was like, that's the difference for me between last year and this year in those two calls.
Yeah. I mean, but yeah, according to the rules, that was targeting. And I saw people say that Justin Fields spun into it. No, he didn't. Like, he was trying to make a move on a linebacker, and the linebacker made him pay for it.
That's the same thing as you saying Trevor Lawrence ducking into it, though. It's the same concept.
No, well, it's not, because Trevor Lawrence was like 6'5", getting hit by a 5'10"
but if Trevor Lawrence
guy.
looks up and a guy's coming at him, what's he gonna do? He's gonna like prepare himself. He's gonna defend himself. That's the same idea.
Justin Fields was way more hurt than Trevor Lawrence, and Justin Fields could hardly walk off the sideline after that throw.
Maybe Trevor Lawrence was tougher. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
I'm joking.
Maybe.
No, I know that hurt. No question. Like,
that was guts, man.
Hard hit.
385 passing yards. Like, he had like 42 rushing yards, but they were 42 very important rushing yards. So let's go to my play of the game. And it's funny because my play of the game is a 9-yard run. I don't know if you remember, but so Ohio State is up 28-14 with about a minute and a half. I think like a minute 35 left on the clock. And they're in run up the clock and get to halftime. They're trying to avoid that Clemson 8. What do they call it? Like swing 8 or something like that, where it's like at the end of the first half, the last 4 minutes of the first half, they dominate, and then they come back after halftime for 4 minutes and dominate and put the game away. So they do that swing 8, and Ohio State's just trying to avoid that. They have 2 scores. They're thinking, let's get to halftime up by 2 scores, and so they're just running sermon. They get to midfield with a minute 35. They're down. It's 3rd and 9, and it's a handoff to Trey Sermon, and he makes the spin move and gets the first down. Do you remember that?
Not specifically, no.
Oh, my goodness. It was play of the game as far as I'm concerned, because now you're at midfield, first down, 2 timeouts. Now you got scoring on the mind. And I don't know if you noticed it, but after that, they switched it. They went to passing, and they were in put it in the end zone mode. And they drive it down, hit I think it was Luke in the end zone, Rucker. Yeah. They hit Rucker in the end zone with like 20-something seconds left, and they go up 35-14, and the game's over. Now, I don't feel comfortable until there's probably about 5 minutes left, and they're up 49-28 in the fourth quarter. Like, the whole game, I'm thinking, you're playing against Trevor Lawrence. You're not playing against an average quarterback. You're playing against the best to maybe ever play the game. And like, he could come back at any moment. So like the whole game, I'm like, until 5 minutes left, and I finally think, hey, I think we're gonna win this. Like, I think we got this. And like, I couldn't sleep until like midnight. But what a game! What a guts by Trevor Lawrence. Like I said last week, I feel like Trey Sermon's gonna just keep rolling, and he did. So boy, what a game. I'm still on cloud 9. Like I've said, I'm probably going to watch it again before the national championship game. And I might be able to go back and watch last year's game because I know how it ends now. It just made everything better, Tim. It just made everything better. We finally got the Clemson monkey off our back, and we are heading to the national championship.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, this is not the championship game. This is the semifinal game. You get rewarded by beating Clemson by turning out playing the best coach of all time.
Right. Best coach of all time, 3 Heisman, top 5 candidates. This isn't your average team. What gives me hope? So I watched the Notre Dame Alabama game today, and you can run the ball on Alabama. They don't have the strongest defensive line. So I think our offensive line can handle theirs in the trenches. I think it's going to be a shootout. I think our offense can score against their defense, and I think their offense can score against Ohio State's defense. They only scored 31 on Notre Dame, and I think Ohio State is better on both sides of the ball than Notre Dame. Obviously, I think Ohio State's defense is better than Florida's. And so Florida, what was the score of the Florida-Alabama game? Like 46-49 or something crazy like that?
It was Florida lost by 6. It was
Yeah.
53-47 or something like that.
Yeah, and so Florida scored 47 on them. I think Ohio State has a better run game than Florida and a very similar passing game than Florida. So I think we can score 46, and I think we can hold them to less than that. So I feel pretty good. Tell me why you disagree.
I don't think that Ohio State's defense is significantly better than Florida's. Like, I think they both struggle in different ways. And I think that the linebackers for Ohio State are better than Florida's, but I don't think their secondary is any better. I think Florida's defensive line is a little better than Ohio State's.
No, I don't think so. I think our defensive line, we have 2 stout, Togiai, Haskell Garrett. Do you notice, like, it was driving me nuts. Kirk Herbstreit during the game kept putting the emphasis on L, Haskell Garrett. Like, no, it's Haskell Garrett. Like, that's what everyone calls him, Haskell Garrett. What are you doing, Herbstreit? Haskell Garrett. It was driving me nuts. But yeah, so we have 2 interior defensive linemen who they can play ball. And then it was almost our defensive line came on when Clemson's offensive line let down. You could see in the fourth quarter, I mean, we were having no problems getting to Trevor Lawrence, and he was under pressure a lot. And he is much more athletic than Mac Jones. So I think that we're ready. I feel really good. Here's how good I feel. I feel more confident going in and get to the Alabama game after what I saw Ohio State do it against Clemson than I did the Clemson game. I think we'll win by more than what we beat Clemson by.
Here's what I'll say. The only chance Ohio State has of beating Alabama is if Ryan Day has a completely unique game plan, completely changes things from what he did against Clemson, and confuses Alabama and surprises Nick Saban, which is not easy to do.
I don't think we have to do that. I think we can go toe-to-toe with him. I think we can go toe-to-toe with him.
Nick Saban's going to look at all your strengths, all your weaknesses. He's going to exploit your weaknesses. Like, if you don't change things up to do things differently, you're not as good as Alabama. Ohio State is not as good of a team as Alabama this year.
We're better than Florida.
You have to surprise them.
We're better than Florida. Florida lost by 6. We're better than – I mean –
Kyle Trask is a reason that Florida lost by 6.
And Justin Fields is better than Kyle Trask.
Kyle Trask is better than Justin Fields. Are you kidding me right now?
I am not kidding you.
Those teams, Kyle Trask easily wins the national championship this year.
What do you mean? You put Kyle Trask on Ohio State?
You change a few plays. Then Florida was 3 plays away from being undefeated this year.
You think you put Kyle Trask on Ohio State's team, Ohio State wins the national championship this year?
I think Kyle Trask is better than Justin Fields.
False. You saw the game, right? You want to know my favorite stat from the game? 6 incompleted passes, 6 touchdowns. He had the same number of incompletion passes that he had touchdowns.
He had the best game of his entire career, which is great.
I mean, maybe, but I think
he's
just
maybe.
that
There's
good.
No maybe. He had the best game of his entire career.
He had great
statistically. Statistically speaking, it's the best game of his career. You just said it. 6 incompletions, 6 touchdowns.
He threw 2 total incompletions. No, 2 total interceptions. Well, I think 1. No, he threw 1 interception in the regular season of last year. The guy had a lights out season last year, so it's hard for me to say this was his best game. He's had so many good games. He had a couple hiccups this year for one reason or the other, but
his last 3 games weren't good.
His last 2, he played well against Michigan State. It was just his last 2. But
Michigan State was the second to last game.
Oh, well, he only had 2 bad games all year. Indiana and
Indiana, Michigan State, Northwestern were not good games for him.
Whatever.
Are you kidding me right now?
I can kid you about that, but I'm not kidding that Justin Fields is way better than Kyle Trask. Kyle Trask might go in the 3rd round, Tim.
Kyle Trask is going to probably be late first round.
And Justin Fields will go probably 2nd pick, at least top 5.
Well, and he will follow the tradition of failed quarterbacks in the NFL for Ohio State.
Can't wait till you're wrong. You were wrong about a lot last week.
Justin Fields,
you're going to be wrong about this.
Against Michigan State, you're wrong again. 17 of 24, 199 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's not a great game.
It's not a great game, but it's not a bad game. It's a good game.
It's not good. It's a really bad team. It was a really bad Michigan State team, and it was average at best. It was barely better than his Northwestern game in the conference championship.
Except he threw like 3 interceptions against Northwestern, or 2 interceptions or something. Like he just didn't look. He looked out of sorts against Northwestern.
He had 3 bad games in a row, and then he turned around again when it mattered against Clemson. He played very well
because he's a great quarterback.
And you know where he wasn't? At the Heisman show today.
Well, it's hard to be at the Heisman show when you play 6 regular season games and you're being judged on the 7 games. So, yeah, if he played a full season, he would be in the Heisman conversation. Anyway, Tim. So Ohio State headed to the national championship. I like their chances of winning. I don't know if they'll win by more than Clemson. I think that was me speaking hyperbolic. But I do think that they'll win by 10. I think Ohio State by 10. The line right now is 7.5, but I'm saying Ohio State by 10. I think they're just rolling and they're clicking at the right time.
Yeah, I think it'll be a close game, but I think that Ohio State will lose by 7.
By 7? Yeah. I think the spread right now is at 8-9 by now. I think, if I remember right, I think the spread was at 9 for Alabama.
I'm looking at it right now.
While you're doing that, let's talk COVID for just a quick second, because there is rumors that Ohio State is losing players to COVID. I've heard defensive linemen, like the whole unit of the defensive line is out because they've tested positive for COVID. There have been talks about moving the game to the 18th, but still with it's 17 days, I think, 14 days that players have to be out for testing positive for COVID. So they wouldn't even be back for the championship game if it was on the 18th. The only benefit that Ohio State would get would be that they would have players back that missed the Clemson game, and they would have Justin Fields an extra week to get healthy. So I don't know. Everything we're hearing is that the game is still on. Ohio State was in the Woody today practicing. They plan on leaving for Miami on Saturday. That's everything we're hearing so far.
Yeah, well, I think the fact they're on-site practicing tells you that at this point it's very likely that the game's going to happen on Monday.
Yeah.
But it is Alabama -8 right now.
Alabama -8? Yeah. So, I mean, if the defensive line is out, then it's going to be a lot closer. If the defensive line is at full speed, and these are just rumors that are happening that have no ground or validity, then I think Ohio State by 10. If the defensive line is out, next man up, Ohio State by a touchdown.
You're joking.
No.
You're saying if the whole defensive line of Ohio State, which isn't that good to begin with, is out, then they'll cost Ohio State 3 points.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You have gone back to the classic Aaron Shipe. I want Aaron Shipe back from last week. He was like sad and like a little puppy dog of like, I don't know if we're gonna win this game.
Well, yeah, that Ohio. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but when I re-listened to our podcast, and I was right about just about everything last week. So that, I mean, that I'm feeling really confident. You were going to win.
You weren't that. You said last week.
I wasn't, but we did
like
win
12 times. I'm not very confident in this team.
I'm not. If you're an Ohio State fan, you weren't confident going into that game. Okay. Somebody was, though. You say somebody put like $1.3 million on Ohio State to win.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, somebody was confident. I was not.
Somebody was very wealthy to begin with.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's not life-changing money to somebody who can put that kind of money down on an underdog.
But good for them, I guess.
Yeah, more power to them. Ugh. Different life. It's like me putting $100 down. I feel like I think it has the same implications.
Yeah, it wasn't a desperation move for them, I'm guessing.
Yeah, but anyway, Ohio State played out of their minds. There's so much about the Clemson game that I want to break down and talk about, but I won't. Just go back and watch it. It's worth a rewatch. When the second quarter, so it went. Here's how it really went. Trey Sermon played out of his mind. Justin Fields played out of his mind. Everybody on Ohio State teams played the perfect game for the most part. The second quarter is what won it for Ohio State. They scored 21 unanswered and went up by 3 touchdowns before half, and then it went blow for blow. And the third and fourth quarter, and they wound up winning by 21 points. So, really impressed with Ohio State. And Tim, you must be impressed because you thought they were going to lose by 14.
Yeah, like I said, like it was to me, it comes down to Ryan Day's game planning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, coaching, man. Yeah. So anyway, moving on to Bama. Devontae Smith won the Heisman tonight. If you're listening to this, it's probably you've already known. But Devontae Smith won the Heisman. Trask came in 4th out of the 4 who were invited. Tim, I know you're not too happy about that.
No, I mean, I think it was sadly expected. Like, it's disappointing for me because his numbers were, without question, the best of the 3 quarterbacks in the room. And then he was 4th of the 4. And then the wide receiver who was catching those passes from the guy who also had a running back who was 5th. I mean, that's
right.
To me, it's like you're stacking up these guys and like, oh, they're in there together. But for me, it's like my argument would be they're making each other better. Like, if those are guys on the same team, then I would expect the numbers to be stacked because you have to worry about more than just a good quarterback like Trask, who had no running game pretty much the whole season. That's what's hard for me is like his numbers were significantly better than anybody else this season, and he gets there, I guess, to the show, which is, I guess, like some kind of moral victory or whatever. But like for me, he had the best season, and he gets 4th, so it's disappointing.
Yeah, it is disappointing, but good for Devontae Smith. I'm glad that a wide receiver won. First wide receiver since 1991. That team up north, what was his name? I don't even know. Woodson? Was it? No.
Yeah.
Was it Woodson?
Yeah.
Rod Woodson?
Charles
Woodson. Yeah, won it in 1991. So good for him. From what I heard, I only really watched the Alabama Notre Dame game. And from what I heard, if it wasn't Devontae Smith, they just need to change it to the quarterback award at that point because he just had the best season. That's just what I've heard. Like I said, didn't watch much of the games. Speaking of moral victories, though, Cincinnati, we've been talking about them all year. Cincinnati went toe-to-toe with Georgia and at the very least showed that they belonged with the big boys in the SEC.
With the 4th best team in the SEC.
Arguably.
I'm talking about ranking.
They are one of the best SEC. I mean,
they were the 4th SEC team for bowl games.
Yeah, but you would agree that they're one of the powerhouses in the SEC, right? I mean,
not this year.
They do go for quality wins. That counts as a quality win, and I think Florida showed that they belonged.
You mean Cincinnati?
Yeah, Cincinnati. Sorry. Excuse me.
No, but it's funny that you're trying to give them credit like that. Like
No, I'm not much on
this year.
victories.
Georgia was not a powerhouse team in the SEC this year. They were okay.
They should have been.
They were the 4th best team in the SEC.
Yeah, bad coach. They have a bad coach.
They have a great recruiting coach, terrible play calling coach.
Yeah, terrible coach. But I was really hoping for a Cincinnati victory there. Luke Fickell blew it. I think he had horrible play calling towards the end. Gave them way too much time. Anyway, it was just bad. So I did want to give props, though, to Cincinnati because I was proud of them as an Ohio guy. It was a good weekend for Ohio outside of that. And, the Bengals, of course. But good weekend for the state of Ohio.
While we're giving props, Florida did not have a great bowl week, the SEC as a conference had a great bowl season once again, proving once again they are the best conference in college football, going 6-2 in bowl games this year. Absolutely dominant, the best conference in college football for the bowl games, and it just shows once again they are the best team, the best conference in college football.
Yeah, and if they win the national championship, that is.
That just locks that in.
Locks that in for sure. If they lose it, it just shows that Ohio State is the Big Ten.
It doesn't mean anything for the Big Ten.
But what gave me hope going into the Clemson game was when Northwestern just dominated Auburn. Like when you went into that, you look like, Auburn's going to be a tough matchup for Northwestern. You're giving no credit at all to Northwestern, and they controlled the game from kick to.
Auburn's like the 6th best team in the SEC.
I hear, and Northwestern probably should have played Georgia or somebody like that because
Northwestern represented the 2nd best team in the Big Ten. So in theory, they're supposed to be the 2nd best team in the Big Ten.
Yeah, but they weren't.
But you want to talk about the actual? So who was the 2nd best team in the Big Ten?
That's my. I don't know. It probably was Indiana. Indiana record-wise was
okay. And what happened to Indiana in the bowl game?
They got beat. by Ole Miss, who
was the ninth
great.
best team in
not great.
in the SEC.
Yeah, that was not a good look. But Northwestern.
So your argument doesn't help.
I'm not having an argument. I believe you. I think that the SEC was the best conference this year, Tim. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying was that Northwestern winning the way they did against Auburn gave me hope for Ohio State. Like maybe Northwestern is better than what people were giving them credit for.
Okay,
that's all I was saying. I wasn't arguing with you. I actually agree with you once because the Big Ten had such a wonky season that the whole conference was down. So yeah. I agree with you that this year the SEC was the best conference, as hard as that is for me to say. So there you have it.
Hashtag facts.
Huh?
I said hashtag facts.
Yeah. Final thoughts, Tim, before we come here next week, hopefully after a national championship game. We still have 6 days before the game, so we really don't know what's going to happen. But we'll be here next week regardless of what happens. Still looking forward to Alabama, Ohio State. And the off season for the Gators to see what kind of unfolds in the coaching carousel and all of that good stuff. So we'll be here next week. But final score, Tim, for the Alabama Ohio State game.
Final score. I'm going to say 38-31 Alabama.
38-31. I am going to say 55-48 Ohio State.
I think you're going to regret saying that. I really do.
Probably, but we'll see. I mean, I don't know. Actually, not probably. I mean, I think it's going to be high scoring. Two really good offenses against two good defenses. I don't think
one good defense, one average defense.
Two good defenses.
This is the first time all year you said Ohio State had a good defense.
The Ohio State's defense looked good against Clemson.
One game. They had one game where they played a decent
at the right time.
Defensive game.
At the right time, Tim. It took 6 games for them to figure it out. And
it took one really good coaching plan.
It took 6 games for them to figure it out. They didn't give up the big plays like you said. They kept everything in front of them, and that's what they have to do. They just have to duplicate what they did against Clemson, and they got it. They got it.
We'll see.
We'll see. Hey, you said that careful what you wish for going into the Clemson game, and look where we are. So we'll see what happens. I'm feeling really good.
I want the old Aaron Shipe back.
This is the old Aaron Shipe. This is the old Aaron Shipe. Last week's Shipe better. Yeah, this is it. So, folks, we'll talk to you next week after the Ohio State victory. Go Bucks.
Go Gators.